Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. Before I get to our guests here today, I'd like to remind everyone that if you enjoy this content, to please give a like and subscribe down below. We greatly appreciate it. We have Shellie Edington on the podcast with us. She's 54, believe it or not. I just want to throw that out there because, that's just one of the benefits of working out that we'll talk about early on. She's a 5 times CrossFit Games master, but most importantly, she's our current guest. Shellie, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Oh, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So why don't you give us a little bit of a backstory on what inspired you to adapt that healthy and fit lifestyle?
Well, in 2000, I started a mobile gymnastics and fitness company. You can see my mats back here. And I started when I was in my mid 30s and really focused on building my company and was growing rapidly and hiring teachers and very busy. And so I really felt like, I didn't have time to work out, have time to exercise. I had been working up until when I started my company, and then it just kind of like became part of the backseat. I stopped scheduling workouts. I got really uninspired by the fitness industry. As I aged, they were telling me, "Oh, you need to rest. You can't do this. You can't do that." It was really uninspiring. So I just focused on building my business and didn't really think about the health, ramifications of what I was doing. I had a mobile gymnastics company. Of course, I was going to stay in shape, flipping kids around, but that was not the case. I One of my parents told me about CrossFit Kids in 2010. So we're kind of, flash forwarding, gosh, what, 20 years? No, 10 years. And so she said, yeah, it's a lot like your tagline, which is age appropriate sports readiness training, which is tumbling for kids, assert. And I said, wow, that sounds like competition. So she connected me with Mitch Potiff, who is the owner of CrossFit 614. And he said, well, if you come to one of my classes, I'll come to one of yours. So he came to one of my classes, brought his daughter, and she flipped around. And then I went to one of his. And I was thinking it was going to be CrossFit Kids. He didn't even have any CrossFit Kids classes yet. And so he's like, you can just take one of our classes. I'm like, all right. And oh my gosh, it was, the gym was nothing, obviously, like Lifetime Fitness or one of the big Globo gyms. So I immediately walk in and I'm like, whoa, what is this? It kind of harkened me back to my gymnastics years where it was just, open, your body was the machine. And there was a couple of barbells in the corner and some squat racks and some pipes that they use for pull-up bars. It was actually really kind of gothic. It was kind of scary. And so the first workout, I couldn't do anything. I couldn't do a pull-up or a push-up. And I was really angry. I was almost pissed off with myself for losing the strength that I had lost over the years. And like I said, I'd been working out sporadically with a trainer, and it just nothing had prepared me for my first CrossFit workout. And everyone's always like, well, what did you do? And I'm like, I don't even know. I just remember I didn't want to go back. I came home and I was still trying to recover. That was a new word I learned. And I was like dying, and I didn't want to go back. And that made me very shocked with myself that I was afraid to go back to a gym to do a workout. And so I really felt that that was kind of like a pivotal point in my life. I was the biggest I'd ever been, not pregnant. I have 3 children. And I was like, something's got to give. I've got to do something because this is not working what I'm doing. And if I don't, I'm probably going to have to retire from teaching tumbling for kids because I'm not going to have the strength to do it. And, I was already feeling it in my knees and in my shoulders and in my back. And so starting CrossFit was the best thing I could have ever done in my life. It has taught me so much. And it just was, just that one parent telling me, hey, I heard of this, competition. I'm extremely competitive. So if she hadn't come into my life and if I had seen like the CrossFit people online and all that and the games, as the years went on, I would have never done it. I would have been like, oh, I can't do that.
Oh yeah, it does look. For some people that when I talk to a lot of them, they do say that like you see all these CrossFit athletes and they just look so in shape, and you're like, oh my god, like I could never do that. So I definitely think just realizing that everyone first of all starts out looking not like that, and it's just the way that they develop. But how long did it take you before you developed that strength back and could do the pull-ups and push-ups? Did it take a while, or was it one of those things where you were just so used to it back a while ago that your body just adjusted to it really quickly?
Well, being an advanced level gymnast, it's like a level 9 equivalent today. I took to the gymnastics pretty quickly and became kind of obsessed with it. It was September of 2010, August when I started. And once I joined, once they peeled me off the ceiling when they told me how much it would be per month, I was like, okay, I'll cancel my other membership. I won't buy any more Starbucks coffee. I'm like figuring out ways to get there. So if you want to make it happen, you will make it happen. I knew I had to. And you know, I started going 3 days a week, and the coach was like, you can come more than 3 days a week. I'm like, really? Because I thought that was like, cut to come. And he's like, yeah. So I started going 4, and then it was 5. I became obsessed with getting double unders and kipping pull-ups. I did a bad thing, and I got my kipping pull-ups before my strict, but it was fine. And so I just, would spend like an extra 15, 20 minutes at the gym after a workout doing stuff. If I had time, if I didn't, I just would leave. And so that was like September. And then, February rolled around, or January, and I had turned 46 in October of 2010. And one of my coaches, Mitch, he kind of scared me. I didn't see him very often. And because I was like a nooner, I would come at noon and I'd get a different coach, and they were really nice. And Mitch was like, hey, how old are you? And I said, I'm 46. He goes, you're competing. I'm like, then what? I come in here every day. I take my class. I leave, just like a fitness class. I said, I don't remember anything. It goes in one ear out the other. And he's just like, well, you got to start paying attention. I'm like, okay, let's just add this to my life, because it was just fun. It was exciting, and it was just a really good community. I was just really drinking the Kool-Aid. It was all I could talk about. My husband, he travels for a living, and he would come home, he'd be gone for a week, come back on the weekend and be like, what are you doing? Either I'd be covered in whip marks from the double unders, or my hands would be all tore apart from the bars, or, doing Annie with a bunch of sit-ups, you get all tore up. And so he's just like, and then the physical adaptations, I started not really watching my diet. I didn't really change that, but I was just working out where I hadn't been working out at all.
So nutrition wise, like you said, you kind of kept the same nutrition, but ever since you started competing or really training for the CrossFit Games, how has your nutrition changed?
Well, that was a journey. People need to understand that we're all different. You can't eat like me and then look like me. I can't eat like you and look like you. It's just, we're just different. And so I went paleo. I started paleo diet in 2011, and you can even look back, like when I've got some old videos of that first open competition, and I'm so skinny, I'm so thin. I was like 117. I went from 145 to probably around 120 at that point. But by the time I realized I really needed to stop the paleo diet, I was I needed to eat more. I didn't stop the paleo diet once I hit 117, but it was just kind of like, that was where I thought I had to be. That's where I was in high school. That's where I was when I got married. And I'm like, well, that's where I need to be. I got to be skinny. And then I tried to put a 55-pound barbell over my head, and I was like, my coach was like, yeah, you need to eat like an entire fish and an entire pineapple. You need to eat more food. And so it was just learning to eat more. And that became very strategic. I went from just the paleo diet to the paleo diet for athletes. And that is a lot of food. And so I tried that in 2011. I placed 70th in the open. We started making, changes in my training to go to the games of 2013, or actually 12. I missed it in 12. 2013, I made it. And 3 weeks before we went to the games, I just was crashing and bonking. I had no energy. Glycogen reserves were gone. Fat reserves were gone. I just wasn't eating enough to keep up with the level of training I had to do in order to go to the games and do something there, instead of just showing up. And so we added dairy and some grains back to my diet, which was rough. It was, just tough to do that, to get my brain wrapped around this is okay again. My stomach was a mess. I didn't do that great at the 2013 games. I don't want to say it was completely my diet. It was a lot of anxiety. I had really built it up and didn't prepare psychologically like I needed to. I was more physically prepared than mentally prepared. So, around 2013, that's when I changed from paleo to just eating whatever I wanted, or clean food. I added rice, bread, and oats and rice back to my diet, and made a huge impact on my energy level. It was just like night and day. Just because of the amount of training I was doing.
Oh
So
yeah.
it really helped.
That's the same thing story with me. I mean, I cannot eat whatever I want now, but I could back in college just because I had so much more free time to work out. So I was getting in these like 2 hour workouts, 2.5 hour workouts where I could eat whatever I want. But yeah, believe me, I miss those days when I could just, settle just eat whatever I want and just be like, hey, I'm gonna burn it off regardless because I'm just gonna be working out
Right.
so hard. Which I mean, that's one of the best things. But you sort of mentioned too, like a lot of the stuff that you do, especially for the games, is mental. It's your mental. I mean, your mental for a lot of people, the mental part of it is so much more important than the physical part because I mean, let's face it, you can go and work out. I mean, people can do that, but just the mental part of just preparing yourself for those challenges can be so draining. What are some ways? I mean, like you said, you sort of had that time in 2013 where you weren't really ready for it mentally, but what were some tips that then you kind of learned from that to sort of prepare yourself more, be better prepared for it mentally?
Well, for me, I do better usually when I've been to an area before and I can kind of visualize myself there. I mean, going in 2013 was basically going into the unknown, and I didn't have like the sports psychology tips and tricks in order to keep my brain kind of win the battle between the ears. And so in 14, when I went back, I didn't care. I was 49, I was top of my age group. I'm like, yeah, we'll see what happens. I don't care. I just want to do better than 19th, what I did out of 20 in 2013. And on the first day, there was 3 days of competition, three, not four. And my daughter was like, you're like 3 points away from third place. You could probably get on the podium. And so at that point, I'm like, oh, yeah, third place, where I should have been going, hey, I need to try to win this. But I just went to third. And so I was like, I just want to get on the podium at 49, because my goal was to win it at 50. And so I ended up getting on the podium. It was a very gymnastics heavy games that year, which was really benefited me. In 2013, it had been totally like big girl, weights. Like I was like, oh my gosh, I'm like trying to pull a sled that weighs as much as I do, and of course, like, it was different. It was different. And every year it's different when you go to the games. You never know what to prepare for, but you just prepare for everything. That's why it's so crazy. So the mental aspect in 14 was more, I didn't care. I was just so relaxed. I knew what I was doing. I was going to go back there and just do better. And I did. And so in 2015, I didn't think I'd have any issues mentally. I'm like, I've done this, been there, done that. I'm going to do great. I won the open. I won the qualifier. I got to the games, and they sent the workouts a week before, which normally I wouldn't get them till I landed in California. And of course, my husband texts them to me at 6 a.m. on Tuesday, a week before the games. And I'm like looking at this going, I can't do that. I can't do that. And just immediately started, not, I can't, but it was like, I suck at rowing 80 calories. I suck at running 400 meters. Just that negative thought process I didn't even realize I was doing. So here I am a week before the games. I'm defeating myself before I even get on the plane to go. And now looking back after my sports psychology, visits, I can see what I did. And so I was able to, because I ended up placing fifth, and it was, again, anxiety was a huge thing. They moved it from the practice playing field at the StubHub to the big thing. And I was like freaked out by that for some reason. And so ended up fifth. And when I came back, that's what really motivated me, was 19th and fifth. It was like, that's the first thing that I had on my phone when I woke up, and it was like, get your butt on that bike. Because the first thing I did every morning was get on the assault bike and ride it for 10 to 20 minutes, low intensity, steady state. Then go to the gym for a couple hours, then go back at night. And that's not year round, but definitely the low intensity steady state year round. You cannot beat that. And it's also psychological. I hired a psychologist, a sports psychologist. Dr. Case, the Athletic Mind Institute is here in Columbus. And he, I don't want to say fixed me, but I only had like 45 days before the games because I didn't want to like go to him if I hadn't qualified. So I think I placed fourth in the open, and I don't know. The open and the qualifier at that point really didn't become a concern. I just wanted to qualify. So I didn't put a whole lot of pressure on myself to win those because it didn't matter. And so I went to him, and he did a podcast for me that I listened to every morning, where I visualized myself at the games in my best performances, how that felt, how it smelled, how the crowd sounded. I mean, literally immersing myself in the moment. And I went there in 2016 and just shit stomped.
Yeah.
It was great. And then in 17, they added a swim 5 weeks before the games, which I was completely, I mean, Mitch would say, go to the pool and swim. And I'd like take a noodle and be like, la, 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 you know,
Yep.
because they never had a swim. So that completely freaked me out. I mean, the day before, like I was going to like just withdraw because I was like, I can't do this. I'm terrified. Even though I hired a coach and swam, like that was another thing. I had to add like more food to my diet because I was swimming like an hour and a half, 3 times a week, and then doing everything. It was like I was just like melting away. And so, you know, I had to add like I had to go up in mass on food. And so I went to my sports psychologist about the swim, and we just talked it over. It was like, listen, he's like, you just have to do it. Like, you don't have to win it. And Mitch said the same thing. He's like, it's probably going to be the first thing you'll do. And then you got the rest of the competition to try to get yourself back up there. And I ended up placing second in a new environment with a swim. So, you know, the sports psychology helped immensely. The mental training, you know, obviously my physical training is huge. I got that down, but this was what I needed to really work on. And to go from being in Carson, California to go to Madison. And I did do a drive-by at Madison. Since we live so close, we went there like, you know, in May after I'd qualified to make sure. And I'm just kind of like drove by and I was like, this is nothing, you know. You know, it just in my head, I made it more intimidating than it was. And so, you know, it was great. And it was a wonderful experience. And, you know, it's always nice, you know, and you know what to do. You learn little tips and tricks to manage that week of competition and to manage your life and your family. And it just gets easier the more you do it. It becomes like, I call it the CrossFit train. And, you know, getting on it can be difficult, but getting off, you know, is also difficult. Once you get on it, it's hard to get off.
Absolutely. And like you said, I mean, like they don't let you guys know until sometimes even like a week ahead of time of what the events that you're going to do. Is that hard when you're doing your training to make sure that you try to incorporate everything because you don't know what everything is doing? Or is there always sort of like, I could imagine if that was me, like there'd always be that thought in the back of my mind was like, oh, I didn't work on this enough as I should, or I didn't work on that as enough as I should. Has that been hard for you to sort of just realize that you kind of have to have a good base in everything?
Yeah, I mean, you have to have a good coach with great programming. And Mitch Potiff is just amazing. And I never had to worry about that. I, from the beginning, trusted in my training. I went to regionals in 2012 on a team. It was so funny. It was me. I was like 40, I don't know, 7. And there was a 40-year-old and another 40-year-old. So we had this old team, and we almost made it to the finals, which was, you know, pretty amazing. And so that was a really good experience. But from then on, I trusted his training. You can't, you know, I have never been ill prepared for any competition from Mitch. And, you know, he just made sure nothing fell through the cracks. I didn't have to worry about it. I think if you're, you know, a lot of people do that. They like overanalyze programming. They ask a lot of questions. And I had kind of started that in the beginning because I came from like, you know, I was a gymnast and my brother had been in the bodybuilding and powerlifting realm. So, you know, it was back and bis, chest and tris and legs and shoulders. And I would ask Mitch, I'm like, wow, yeah, you know, when I first started, I'm like, yeah, we did shoulders yesterday. And he would just be like, I'm like, yeah, you know, I kind of did like 1,000,000 pull-ups and push-ups. I'm doing push presses. What? Yeah. You know, and it is a lot of shoulders and it is a lot of everything. And so he finally said, you know, listen, you just have to shut up and let me drive the train or we're not going to get anywhere. And if you are wanting to go to the games, have those goals, stop. You have to be able to trust in your training, and you have to tell yourself that when you're lining up in that corral to go out there to compete, you can't be having any doubts. You got to know, I got this. Who's second? You know what I mean? Get out of my way. And they got to be looking at you like, oh, who's going to beat her? You know, that's the attitude you have to have because you can't have those doubts. You got to know that every day when you're training that you're making progress and you're giving yourself a, you know, 212 effort, you know, not 212%, but 212 like boiling point, you know, effort.
Absolutely. So out of all the CrossFit moves, what would you say is the easiest one for you and what is the hardest one?
I'd say pretty much all the gymnastics moves are easy. Being a master, you learn to, you know, I'm not going to string together like 30 muscle ups. That'd be stupid. I'm never going to be able to do that. So why would I put my body through that? So just making sure I can do like, you know, I had one coach that kind of pushed me to see how many I could do. And I could do like 9 or 10. And I was like, okay, that's good. I don't really need to do more than that. The bar muscle up is probably my favorite gymnastics move. The hardest move for me is deadlift. For some reason, I'm really working on that now. I'm working on my form to just make sure I'm moving well. Cause it's the thing about CrossFit and the thing about discovering, hey, I might be good at this pretty early on into the start of it was, and wanting to get to games as quickly as possible. We didn't fast forward a lot of things, but we kind of did. I mean, we really watched my movement and my development, but when you're doing things that rapidly, things fall through the cracks. It's a lot of volume, it's a lot of weight. You're working up to 90 to 100% for the open, for the qualifier, for the games. And then I always did an Olympic lifting meet. So 4 times a year, I'm going to like 90 to 100% on all my lifts. And that's not, you're nodding your head. You're saying like, yeah, that's crazy. Because that's working at that. My Olympic lifting coach is like, this is not normal. But you want to go to the games. So you're, doing this 4 times a year where most people would maybe do it twice, maybe do it once, and so, it is what it is. So.
Absolutely. So what would you say is the biggest misconception that the general public has about CrossFit?
Oh, that they're going to get hurt.
Mm-hmm.
And, it can happen. You have to learn to control yourself, and you have to have a coach that you'll listen to. And a lot of people don't listen to their coaches. They look at you like you're crazy. So you have to explain to them like what the rate of perceived exertion means, why I have a 7 up there on the board. Well, try to explain that to them that, hey, you want to work out tomorrow, right? So we need to make sure that we move properly with proper technique and form, especially during the strength and skill portion. And then when we move on to the high intensity or even the low intensity, that we're moving well and at a good pace, and you have an idea going into it what it's supposed to stimulate, and whether it's stamina, endurance, and just listening to your coach. And I think sometimes with CrossFit, there's this desire just to be wild and free and just kind of throw the barbell around, and that happens, and it's a lot of fun. It's great to kind of let those endorphins just kind of flow. But if you don't know how to move properly, you should not be throwing a barbell around. So it's a gradual build. When they see these athletes at the games, they have been preparing. I mean, you're talking about the top athletes on the planet in CrossFit. And so, it takes time, and it's a journey, and it can be a frustrating journey. And so it's just better, to err on the side of caution, listen to your coaches, and understand that everything's modifiable. It's just exercise. That's what I tell people. It's literally just exercise. That when Greg Glassman opened his gym, he called it CrossFit.
Mm-hmm. That's just so insane. And it's like, now you guys have games on ESPN. I remember watching the first games that were on ESPN.
And they're trying to get into the Olympics.
Yeah.
Yes. I have a friend that works for the legal counsel, and she's working with the IOC to try to get them into the Olympics. I'm like, what?
Well, that could probably be the one time that Iceland gets a gold medal in something.
Sure.
I was like, because that's what I realized. Because I was like, all these the younger ones. I mean, it's all Iceland girls, and I was like, oh, that's weird because it's such a small country, but yet they just have such a number of athletes that
And the men, I mean,
the men too, too.
Like the Iceland women are stronger than the men.
Yeah. Well, besides the mountain, I'll give the mountain that credit.
Okay,
that guy,
all right.
I mean, but that guy's just that guy. I mean, he came to Minnesota for the Vikings games because we're all about people that look like Vikings, so they had him come in, and that was really, really cool. But the women are just unbelievably strong, and you just look at that, and I'm like, oh my god, that's incredible. But now, I mean, going from CrossFit. It's just like you said, it's just a type of workout that people don't really understand. But like you said before, I mean, and I have to mention that you said like you've had times where like your hands get all messed up. Like there's just, I mean, we've seen so many photos on Instagram of people who have like bloody hands because they've just been working all the time. How do you still feel the need to work out after that? Because I'm one of those people where if my hands started to bleed and get like really tough, I'd be like, nope, I'm done for a while. I'm taking a couple of days off.
Well, no, and that's smart. If you're not competing, take a couple of days off, or do something, use straps, use, put grips on, put tape on your hands, use gloves. It's totally fine. You shouldn't get to the point where you rip. And I learned that, as a gymnast, I knew how to take care of my hands. So I'd never ripped that often. But a lot of people don't take care of their hands, and they don't understand that, there's certain, and again, that's where the coaching comes into play. It's like, okay, well, there's certain things that we develop grip on. And, you need to constantly be developing your grip, especially if you're going to be climbing rope, swinging on bars, lifting deadlifts and deadlifts and barbells. But there's certain times we want to build it. Like when you're doing heavy deadlifts, you should use straps, especially if you're going way above like your clean max. So you're obviously trying to get to the point where you're building your back strength so that you can eventually clean heavier weight, obviously without straps. But it's just understanding it. It's just a journey. And, what I tell people is what I tell you. If you tear and you rip, take care of it. Take a couple of days off. Do something different. Maybe just do the assault bike. Do things that aren't going to tear up your hands. But definitely protect your hands when you're doing those things. A lot of people say, "Well, I don't like the way grips feel. I don't like this and that." I'm like, "Well, then you're probably going to rip." And if you're trying to compete, these are the two most important tools that you have, and you have to take really good care of them. So I would look at my workouts and be, all right, I need wad and duns and my grips for this workout, and because I had to work out the next day, and it was up to me whether I wanted to work out with bloody, gross hands or if I wanted my hands to be intact, because I was not getting out of my workouts.
Yep.
It was like I had to. Training, when you're training for the games, every day is crucial. Every rest day, every active rest day, it all plays into it.
Absolutely. Like I can even remember, well, going back, I mean, I was also a very good hitter in baseball, but even I remember some of those times just hitting a ball in my basement. We have a net and we have a cage in there, just hitting it until I'd see blood on my gloves, and I'd be like, oh, okay, that's from, gripping the bat and swinging it, like 500 times. So I can
Right.
totally understand that, that just that dedication to just keep going. And that's just so commendable. But now you mentioned before, I mean, you have kids, and I always like to say, like being a mom, that's a full-time job in and of itself. How are you still able to find time to juggle training for our CrossFit Games and while also being a mom?
Well, the great thing about it is that I had my kids really young. I was 22, 24, and 26 when they were born.
Okay.
And so by the time I started CrossFit, my youngest was almost 20. She was 19. So I was kind of like an empty nester. My husband was traveling a lot for work, and my mother-in-law at the time, who lives with us, was pretty healthy. And, I had a lot of time on my hands when I wasn't coaching. And so I started really focusing on Olympic lifting after the 2011 Open, and I placed 70th in the world. And my coach was like, "Hey, you might be good at this." I was like, "All right." I said, "What do I need to do?" I sat down with my coach and we had a meeting. So everybody who doesn't know what to do, sit down and talk to your coach, and he will give you guidance. You can't just talk to him during class and be like, "Hey," you need to sit down, buy him a cup of coffee, invest in this relationship. And so, I started doing Olympic lifting 6 hours a week. He was like, "You have to come Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. That is where you are really bad." And I mean, literally, like in 2012, my Olympic lifting coach looked at me and goes like, "You really should be better at this by now." I was like, "I'm old. I'm sorry." And I kept running it through a gymnastics filter. So a lot of the stuff we did when we were younger still kind of impacts us definitely as we grow older. But yeah.
And now, two of my favorite questions that I love to ask, all my health and fitness guests that I have on is, one of the things that I realized when I started to work out a lot in college and get bigger and stronger is that you're going to get asked to move a lot of people's furniture. You're going to get asked to open a lot of pickle jars. I mean, I'm still at home with my parents for the next few months, and every time they come home, I basically have to lift in all the groceries when
That's
they come in.
wonderful.
Oh, well, yeah, I know. I'm a great son like that. But have you found that because, I mean, obviously, you can't see it now, but people, if you go and look at her Instagram page, I mean, like, if you were to look at her, you'd be like, okay, yeah, she could probably
cold in Ohio.
she could probably like lift my furniture for she can help. Have you found that because you look the way that you look now, that people just assume that you can do favors for them like that?
Well, I don't get asked to do that very often, like to move things but definitely to open jars and stuff.
Yes.
It's really quite intimidating to a lot of people. They are afraid of me. And I'm like, "I'm not going to hurt you," or they think I can beat them up, I'm like, "No, I'm not a fighter." That is like something I'd like to learn, self-defense, combat training. I think that would be fun. But yeah, a lot of times it scares people, especially men. They get very intimidated. And I've even had women tell me, like, when I visit CrossFit gyms, like this was before I had, became a CrossFit Masters champion. They'd be like, "Wow, you're just really intimidating." And I'm like, "Well, I'm sorry," like trying to cover up my biceps. We're standing there at the squat rack bar, like so awkward. So some people just, and they're not used to seeing it, especially in Ohio. It's certain venues. Like when I go to, there's this huge memorial golf tournament here. And if I go to that, it's extremely hot. So I'm going to wear like a tank top and shorts, and people are just like staring at me like, "Whoa, like, what is that?" I'm like, so it depends on where you're at. Like a lot of people ask me, "Do you work out?" They want to know what I do.
Have you ever just said no when they ask you if you work out?
I want to say no. That would be great. I just woke up like this,
Yeah. Oh,
that would be
God.
great.
I mean, I'm 6'3", so personally, like, people just look at me and then they just assume I can help them with stuff like that. Like, I don't even need to be in shape. Yeah, I don't even need to be in shape, really, and they could have just asked me that. So, like, I remember even last summer, because this is where all my friends are starting to move out, where every weekend I would get a different text from someone else being like, "Hey, Ryan, I need you, like, come help with, like, my couch or my my chair. And it got to a point where I just told him, I said, okay, as long as I get to work out before, because I was like, I don't want to get too tired from helping you move that I'm not able to work out then
Yeah,
afterwards.
exactly.
So
Yeah.
yeah, but it did sort of make me realize like, hey, they recognize that I work out and I put they realize all the hard work that I do put into the gym. Absolutely. And I always like to say, like you say, that people might be intimidated. I always love to say this is that that's why I love having, guys and girls that are like in really good shape on the shows, because a lot of times people, like you said, they aren't able to see past the muscles and realize that there's an actual human being behind that. They're just like, oh my God, what is that? Like and I mean, obviously that's human nature to like, if you see something that you don't see a while, to just be,
Right.
curious about it. But it's always just to realize that these are just average people. They have their own stories, and it's just so inspiring to then have them come on and talk about it, because like I said, so many people they're not able to look past the way that people look, and it's just
Sure.
it's one of my things that I love to have for them on. But now probably my favorite question that I ask is that, and again, this is a multi-million-dollar idea for anyone out there who's thinking about it, but when it comes to clothes for women, for fit women and women with muscles, your clothing options can be limited. Like I always like to say, dresses aren't really your best friend if you have really big shoulders. Jeans are another thing that we hear of that's really, really hard. What are some ways that you sort of compensate for the fact that your clothing options can be limited?
Well, I have to buy very nice clothing. I can't wear just whatever. Like if I buy a dress, it's gonna be at least $400 to $500, only so it can fit through here.
Mhm.
I have a personal shopper at Nordstrom who helps me. She'll find things because she knows what my body type is. She knows what's going to fit me, and she makes it way easier for me. But it's again, ridiculous, like $200 jeans. The only thing that's going to fit everything that needs to be fit and move the way I want it to move. And so I don't buy a whole lot of that. I buy a whole lot of I get like Savage is like my sponsor, so I wear a lot of their stuff, a lot of stretchy clothes.
Shout out to Savage.
Yeah, Savage Barbell.
Yeah.
Duluth, now they have the
Duluth
I
Trading
don't know,
Company?
swing and flannel. No, Duluth is just like a working
Oh.
apparel company, but they have like gussets
Yes.
in their flannels, which are awesome. Like I can like move around. This is a North Face. I can move around in it. So I just have found that if I buy quality clothing, it's it makes a huge difference. Yeah, I haven't had I've had some dresses like when my daughters got married,
Yeah.
I'd get stuck. I'd be like, whoa, help, because I couldn't get it off. Like I would get it on and then I couldn't get it up. Something happens when you're removing it. I don't know. And so it was rough. Some of the dresses that I tried on. So
That's what I was gonna say. Your daughter might not have liked it though, because you probably took all the attention away from her at the wedding, because everyone was just staring at you as opposed to your daughter. So yeah.
they're all beautiful.
Oh yeah. No, that's what I always say to, like, because I had a friend of mine who he's really, really in shape, and so I always told him, I was like, if I get married, you're not going to be at the wedding because you're going to take all the attention away from my wife. So it's one of those, because like he is literally like 300 pounds, he's just like huge, and I was like, yeah, you're not coming, you're not showing up.
It's
so.
too distracting. Sorry.
Oh yeah. Well, I even have a story like that too with the clothes, where I put on about like 15 pounds of muscle my freshman and sophomore year of college. So I went to a friend of mine's wedding, and I went down to bend over to get something. I dropped something, and then I heard a rip, and then it wasn't my jacket, thankfully, but it was my shirt underneath my jacket. So I was like, yeah, okay, I'm gonna need to get new clothes. So I mean, I was able to make it through the rest of the day without any other mishaps. But yeah, that was my one step where I was like, yeah, I've gotten a little bit bigger, so maybe I should get some different clothes. But
That's
now,
where I felt rips like right here. I would rip. I just still wear stuff that have big holes right here because I'm like, whatever. There's room for my lats now.
Yep. And then my last question before we get to my audience favorite part and my favorite part, the little questionnaire is going to be, so we both live in cold climates. I mean, we can see snow in the background. In Minnesota, Minnesota, it's like 20 degrees right now.
Minnesota.
Yeah. What are some ways that you sort of deal with the cold? Because a lot of people don't realize when it gets to like negative 10 degrees, all your body wants to basically tell you to do is we're just going to stay inside today and just sit by the fire. Yeah. Hibernate basically. What are some ways that you're able to convince yourself to say like, hey, I still need to get this workout in?
Well, I just I have this wonderful app from GoWOD, which I know that sounds really cheesy, but it has like a post. You can put everything you're going to do for your workout, and it makes me roll out certain ways, because I would probably just kind of just lay there on the roller with my hat on and my gloves and my scarf and not want to move. So that helps. That motivates me. Definitely leaving layers on while I'm warming up, and just kind of like I did like a live video today on Instagram where I had my hat on and my shirt, and by the end I'm like already in my sports bra, so it just, once you warm up, it helps. And then knowing that helps a lot. I don't know. I've lived in a cold climate most of my life. And then like the gyms I go to, CrossFit gyms, they're not known for heating and cooling. And so it's cold. It's like, you'll see your breath a lot of times. And And you just, at my age, it takes a little longer to get warmed up. So you just go to the gym a little earlier and get yourself warmed up. Now I do have heated seats in my car. I have a heated steering wheel. I have remote start. So it's the little things, that make things a little easier.
My new car that I just got has a heater, but my old one for the first 5 years of my life driving was not heated at all. So during the winter, that made things very, very. And I mainly just drove it to like high school or drove it, sometimes to college. But still, that was very, very interesting. Those mornings where I had to scrape it off and then sit in a car when it was 10 degrees outside.
Did it have air conditioning?
Yeah, it had air conditioning. But that was the one thing I was like, you gotta be. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. So yeah, absolutely. So now we go, like I said, to our audience favorite part of the podcast and my personal part of the podcast, the little questionnaire. I'm gonna ask Shellie here about a dozen or so questions and see how she stacks up to all the other health and fitness guests that we have on our show. So for our first question, what is your go-to workout song at the moment?
Iron Man. Ooh. Oh, and I love Sweet Child of Mine.
Yep. Believe it or not, like I am also 80s music is my main type of music that I listen to during my workouts. I'm so cheesy though that I'll have like the Rocky 4 soundtrack just because it's the cheesiest soundtrack there is going on. But I also have a problem too. Like I have a gym at home, which is nice. So I work out probably like 80% of the time there. But the one time I go to anyone else's gyms, like let's say I'm doing like a lat pull down, I'll have to wait for the beat to drop. So sometimes people will see me just like stand there for like 30 seconds. And they'll be like, what is this guy doing? And I'm like, oh, I'm waiting for the beat to drop. Just give me some time. So that's my one thing that I definitely
wait for it.
Yeah, you gotta definitely wait for it. But now, out of all the celebrities on the planet, if you could work out with any celebrity, who would it be?
Oh gosh, I don't know. Maybe the guy that plays Thor. That would be cool.
Yeah, Chris Hemsworth. Yeah, yeah.
That'd be cool.
That would be awesome. Yeah, for me, I'd probably just choose like Arnold, just because it's Arnold, and his accent alone.
Arnold. That's a good one. Yeah. I love Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he would be great. I mean, we've had people on who have like had photos with him and everything like that, and I was like, oh yeah, if I could get him on, I mean, that would be the ultimate. Where I'd be like,
oh yeah,
that would be awesome.
Be very cool.
Absolutely. So, what is one item that you always need to have in your fridge?
Gluten-free bread and greens. Yeah. Pretty much it.
Yeah. I mean, usually. Yeah. I was gonna say, because like our most popular answers are chicken and rice, but one of the most surprising answers, especially for some of the bodybuilders that we've had on, a lot of the guys too, is mustard, because it's like 0 in calories, it's 0 in fat. So that's the one thing that they put on all their food just to give it a little bit of flavor, because they're eating all this dry chicken all the time. But gluten-free.
CrossFitters get to eat.
Oh that's the one thing too. And the thing is too, CrossFitters, a lot of them look like they could do a bodybuilding show the very next day too. So I was like, they must be doing something. Like Annie Thor's daughter is like, you kidding me? She could do a show the next day after a CrossFit meet. So I was like, you gotta be kidding me. So yeah, they have some secret, I guess. But now, what is one thing that people who follow you on Instagram would be surprised to know about you if they met you in person?
Oh gosh. I don't know.
One thing that we get a lot is height.
Height?
Yeah.
I'm short.
Well, a lot of people that we have on are like, yeah, I'm only like 5 feet tall, and a lot of people think that I'm like 5'8" when they meet me or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think a lot of people when they meet me, they act like they know me.
Oh yeah.
It's okay for me, but it freaks my family out. Like, especially at the games, that's where I would get a lot of people coming up to me and like, Coach and my husband were like, whoa, men, and they're like, Shellie, and I think they would be surprised to know that I have a very protective family. But I'm trying to think. I don't know. I think I'm pretty open on my Instagram page. Pretty much just work out, eat. I'm a corporate trainer. I don't really go into that a whole lot on Instagram, but I'm a coach also for adults as well as children. So
yeah, that's awesome. So now, what is the last TV show that you binge watched?
I have to think about that. I think it was Sabrina the Witch.
Oh wow!
Halloween.
Oh yeah.
And Daredevil. I'm watching that, the new Daredevil.
And what is your favorite TV show of all time?
this is going to be really dated, but I haven't really had one since. I really like Northern Exposure. I don't know whether you remember what that was.
No idea what that is. No
It
idea what
was
that
it
is.
was funny. I liked it. It was good. I love Star Trek too.
Whoa,
So,
wow.
yeah.
Learn something new every
I'm
day. We
like,
have a Trekkie on the show with us now.
yeah, I
Yeah.
am.
Yeah.
That's probably what people will be most surprised if
Yeah,
they.
well, I'll write that down for that one too, then, because
Yeah,
I keep the answers, and then I like to sort of like
they'd be
tally what
surprised that
our
I'm a
most popular ones are.
Trekkie for
Yeah, a
sure.
Trekkie. Oh yeah, that's awesome
A
because
huge
believe
like
it or not.
Robert Jordan, Wheel of Time fan.
Oh yeah.
I'm into all of that. I love it.
I was gonna say because like normally we get like a Friends or The Office, which are my two favorite TV shows of all time.
Right. And I would say Friends or The Office, those are both really good.
So I have a story on that too. So for the last 2 months, I've been emailing the lady who played Ross's first wife, Carol, the lesbian on Friends, and she's going to be coming on in 2 weeks
Oh my
because
gosh.
she started a charity, and I said, you can come on and talk about the charity, and so then we finally set a date, and I told her, I said, you do realize half the questions are going to be Friends questions though, and she goes, oh yeah, I get that all the time. So now I'm coming up with like the 30 to 40 best Friends questions, and I'm
Yeah.
going to get the whole inside story on Friends because I mean it's like I want to just know like how that changes a person being on a TV show that's that famous, where like literally you can never escape it. So, well, that'll be definitely an interesting conversation to have with her, and I cannot
Yeah.
wait to have
Let
it.
me know when
Oh
that
yeah,
happens.
I'll send you a
I'm gonna
link to that. Yeah,
subscribe on
oh
YouTube.
yeah, I'm gonna send a link to like everyone when that gets posted because I was like, yeah,
That's a good
everyone
one.
wants to
That's a
see that.
big one.
Oh, that's gonna be a huge one. Yeah. So now
Yeah.
going back, what is a guilty pleasure movie that you enjoy?
Hmm. I don't know. I love all the Marvel movies, like the Avengers, and I love Wonder Woman. I'd have to say that's a
Oh yeah.
guilty pleasure movie. I love watching Wonder Woman.
For me, and
So
again, all of my guy friends that are watching this, close your ears for the next about a minute. But Princess Bride is my guilty pleasure movie.
oh yes, that is so good. I love that movie.
Oh my
That one
god,
too. I'd
yeah.
have to say, didn't it enter my thoughts,
Mhm.
but love that movie.
Oh yeah,
Love
it's.
it. So good.
I'll even tell a story. I was writing my thesis paper in college, and that movie came on, and I literally stopped writing my thesis paper for 2 hours just to watch that movie, just because I like that movie so much. But yeah, it's my guilty. That's my
Yes.
ultimate date night movie. That's my ultimate. Anytime it comes on, I stop whatever I'm doing, unless it's like a podcast or anything like that. Where I mean, I even had it on one time. I was
And the
watching a podcast.
bride is in Wonder Woman.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah,
That too,
yeah.
Robin Wright. Yep,
Yeah.
absolutely. I mean, yeah. I always said like if I could have one guest that's dead that could have been on this podcast, I'd love to have Andre the Giant on, just because.
Yes,
You know.
we loved Andre. My husband is a huge fan of Andre the Giant.
Oh, is your husband a wrestling fan too?
Yes, my husband
Okay.
was a wrestler. My son-in-law is a head wrestling coach here in Ohio for one of the high schools. So wrestling is a huge part of our lives.
I was
So.
gonna say one time when I was really really young, I didn't know who he was at the time, but at Target I ran into Macho Man Randy Savage. He was shopping at Target. I had no idea, and even my dad like was pretty excited because my dad was kind of a wrestling fan. Where he told me afterwards, like, "You're gonna remember this when you're older, but you may not have known who he was at the time." But I was
Right.
so now at the time I was like, "Oh, if I would have known that ahead of time, now I would have been a lot more excited than I was because I was only like 3 or 4 years old." But
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely,
Very cool.
yeah, absolutely.
I remember him too.
Oh
Yeah.
he was huge. And then well actually I have a funny story. So my uncle used to work at the Met Center here in Bloomington where the Minnesota North Stars, the old NHL team, used to play, and they had a wrestling match there, and my uncle flagged down a taxi for Andre the Giant because they just had a wrestling match after, at one of those venues, and he gave my uncle $100 tip for flagging him a cab, and this was like in the 1970s. So that's a pretty huge tip for someone.
Yeah.
So yeah, my uncle
Well,
always loves to tell that story.
that's a great story.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So now, what is your favorite fashion trend of all time and least favorite fashion trend of all time?
I'd have to say leggings. I'm so glad they came back. I know they were popular in the 60s and I just love them. And then my least is probably bell bottoms. I don't like those.
Thank God I never had to deal with those when I was
And shoulder
younger.
pads. Oh,
Oh yep.
never needed those.
Thank God that went away. For me, kind of like you mentioned before, like flannel is really, I love that. Not just because it's like the style, but just because living in a climate like Minnesota, you're gonna need something that keeps you really really warm.
Yes,
You
leggings and flannels.
9 months out of the year. So yeah, absolutely. I love flannel, and I gotta say, like I watched my parents' old wedding video, and just the hair that they had. I mean, they got married in '91, and just the hair that they had back then. I wish that would make a comeback. Like all the guys
Oh,
had,
yeah.
all the
Big
guys had,
hair.
all the guys had mullets and everything, and I was like, oh my God. Just we had one guy my senior year in high school who grew one out for football just as a joke, but yeah, I mean, I was like, yeah, that's definitely got to make a comeback. But now, if you could go back in time and talk to the 18-year-old version of yourself, what would be the best piece of advice you would give her?
Trust your heart. Trust yourself, don't doubt.
Mhm.
Pretty
Yeah.
much it. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, for me, it would just be, like you're not gonna be able to please everyone because I was a huge people pleaser back then. Where you just got to realize, you just got to go with the flow a lot more. But now we'll probably have a lot of women viewing this that are, might be older that just really want to, get in shape and really really start out. What is your best piece of advice for them specifically? Because like I said, or like I was gonna say, being 50, it's going to be a lot different to get in shape than it is. Let's say if you're just like 20 years old, and there's a lot more you can do at that age than you can do at 50. So what would you say is the best motivation or best tip that you could give them in order for the older women to get in shape?
I think, my first, I say find a CrossFit gym. You can go to CrossFit.com, put in your zip code, find an affiliate. There's multiple gyms now. And a lot of them have masters. Like I'd say most of the gyms are 35 and up. It requires you to have, some, amount of disposable income to be able to, go to these gyms. So you are going to be in an environment that is controlled. Um, there are people there for the same reason as you are, and you just start at square one. Just get moving. And the reason I promote CrossFit is because the community is so great and the coaches care so much. And you will find other people, maybe not exactly your age. There's not a lot of 50-year-olds that work out at my gym, but there's a lot of 40s and 30s, and we get along great. And I get to associate not only with them but also 20-year-olds, and we just all kind of commiserate together, when we're working out, and
They share the misery together, basically.
yes, yeah, and they just support you in every aspect and communicate with you. And when I was at these other gyms, like with all the machines, like nobody even made eye contact, and nobody even acknowledged your presence, and that can be very. I mean, some people they like that, but for me, I need the. I want to talk to people. I don't want to, I don't want to socialize all the time when I exercise, but I want to be acknowledged. I want and especially in situations where you're moving your body and you haven't done it for a long time, you need coaching and do some personal training. Grab that coach. And a lot of, like our CrossFit gym, you can't join unless you do like so many personal training, private training sessions with a coach so that they can teach you how to move properly. And the great thing you'll learn at CrossFit is, how to roll out, how to recover, how to take care of your body, find a good chiropractor, a good massage therapist. You're going to need those things to keep your body moving as you continue to age. And a lot of it, depends on how you've taken care of yourself up to age 50, on how quickly, you'll progress and things like that. But find a good gym, talk to people, get started. Don't wait any longer.
I mean, that's what I say. Like, you could start at any age. I mean, there's some people that, they've started as old as like 50s and 60s and they can still, get in shape. It's never, never too late. And always just, realize a lot of things that a lot of people, especially in my generation, where it's always, they want it now and they want it yesterday. It's going to take a while for you to adjust that health to get more in better shape. I mean, that's one of the things I always sort of like to make the comparison where, like, if you were an alcoholic as opposed to someone that was overweight, an alcoholic, if you just stop drinking for one day, you're already on the path. Like, you're already in the clear. Whereas if you're just worked out for one day and you look in the mirror, you're not going to see any really changes or difference. Or even after a few months, even, you might not see any changes. Where
it's do this again
yeah,
and again.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. Where it's just, it's one of those things where you just have to do every single day, or not every single day, but you just got to, just stay with it, because once you do see the results, it just really motivates you to even keep going and going. And believe me, your body years from now will thank you so much for the results that you did years prior to that and all the struggling that you did. And it's just,
there's actual research. I don't know whether you saw the article. It was in the New York Times. It's based on a study from California where they took 75-year-old people who worked out for 30 years, like 40 to 75 or 45 to 75, and compared their muscle tissue, blood plasma, I think, or oxidation or whatever, and their VO2 max to a 25-year-old, and it was indistinguishable. Now, the people that hadn't, they did other 70-year-olds that hadn't worked out, and it was just, worlds apart. So they can't. So it really is, if you do exercise consistently into your 70s and 80s, you will be younger. Mm-hmm. So it's
and now. Oh yeah, absolutely. And so now for last few questions before we wrap things up, what is your current training routine like now? I mean, the games have been over for a while. Are you just getting ready for other things? What is your training process like now?
Well, in 2017, toward the end, I had my usual yearly Olympic lifting competition. And building up to that, I had a knee injury. I did really well at the competition, but afterwards, my knee just really was bad. I had a torn meniscus, thinning cartilage. So in January of 2018, I had umbilical cord stem cells put in and completely regenerated the meniscus and the cartilage. Everything's great. But then my shoulder started giving me issues. And I just really had to come to terms with the fact, like, what are my CrossFit goals? And I, went through them. And I'm like, I've already attained them. I've done everything I wanted to do in CrossFit sport. Now I want to focus on CrossFit health, and I want to work on health and longevity, and continue. Obviously I'm going to probably stop, eating almond butter and start using more mustard. But, it is different. I have to change my diet. It's a different journey now. And so if I want to stay lean and I want to stay healthy, I need to make some adjustments. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. I'm no longer focusing on CrossFit sport. That's not saying I won't compete again someday, but, at this point, I'm just trying to get healthy and get everything moving well again.
That's awesome. So is there anyone that you would like to give a shout out to?
Oh, I guess I don't know. all my friends in CrossFit land, who are working hard. And if you want any advice, you can go to my Instagram page. There's a link there that can take you to, if you want to call me, you can sign up for a consultation. I'll talk to you about, goal setting, what it takes to make it to the games, or, whatever you want to chat about. And then there's also links on gymnastic skills and all kinds of CrossFit stuff, my story. I'm definitely here to help and want to help anybody who, wants to move on and progress.
Now I'm going to set you up for an absolute home run. So what are any sponsors that you would like to give a shout out to?
Yes. Let's see. So Savage Barbell, who supplies most of my apparel. And if you go to my Instagram, you'll see the discount. It's Shellie15. And then Renaissance Periodization, who has been a huge help in helping me to, bridge that, eating whatever I want, which I did for a little while. And then it was like, oh, wait, I'm gaining a lot of weight. So their templates have been very helpful in helping me to maintain my diet throughout everything I do, whether it's sport or longevity. And that discount code is Shellie10. And then also Gainsbox. They're a great sponsor. They have a lot of cool stuff that you can get a monthly box and has great CrossFit gear in it. It's a great gift for someone who's like drinking the CrossFit Kool-Aid. And you can use Shellie as a discount on that. And then another great sponsor for me has been RX Smart Gear. They make the jump ropes. They're wonderful, wonderful people. And then just CrossFit, community themselves, CrossFit, CrossFit Games have always been very supportive. Pat Sherwood, Dave Castro, they're awesome. I love the people.
That's great. And again, everyone, I'll leave the links down below to all that stuff and her Instagram page. Go and follow her. Like I always say, I mean, if you just take one look at her Instagram page, you're going to be like, okay, I need to get off the couch and, stop eating those Twinkies all the time and, really stop in debt. I mean, you're just a huge inspiration. And I mean, just keep doing what you're doing. Because especially with the obesity crisis and everything that's going wrong with that, we need more people like you to, sort of provide that healthy image that people can attain and, live up to. So again, we cannot thank you enough for coming on this podcast. It was really, really great having you on. I hope a lot of people learned a little bit more about CrossFit too, because I mean, it has gotten popular, but there is a lot of stigma towards CrossFit, like you're talking about the injuries and everything. So if just people could learn, like I said, it's all about your training too. If you train right, the injuries, I mean, you're going to there's probably about as big of a chance of you getting injured as there are just doing regular weight training. So it's one of those misconceptions that we love to bust. And again, Shellie, we cannot thank you enough for coming on. It was really, really a pleasure to have you on. And this is Ryan Johnson, DD on the spot, signing out. Have a great day, everyone.